take this opportunity to introduce her as well. We have with us Mr. Manoj Madhavan Kutty. He is the Director, Admissions and Coordinator, International Relations at SRM University, Delhi NCR. And he's a polymath, which basically means he has some expertise in most of these areas. He's worked in an IT company, he's been an entrepreneur, he's also served in an automotive company, which is Mercedes-Benz, before exploring the education vertical, of course. He's also volunteered in the NGO movement, Bhakti Shakti in Malaysia. He worked towards the deprived Tamil communities by giving them free courses on technical self-employment and motivational classes for the needy students. He holds a Bachelor's of Technology and a double Master's of Science program, where he did a Master's in International Strategic Management from University of Bradford in the UK and an MSc in International Business Management, Kosminski University, Poland. I can already go on about his achievements, his expertise, but we have Sir here with us today itself, and it's an extreme honor to have you here with us. And I'll let you take over and start with the webinar right away.
Okay. Namaskar. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, young Indians, and probably, I don't know if we have some foreigners. All are welcome for this wonderful evening. Today we have set the topic right. It's about AI, right? I'm always excited when I talk about this topic because, right from my childhood, we have been taught A for apple, B for ball, but things are changing. Now it's no more like that. A for AI, B for blockchain, C for cybersecurity, D for data science, and goes on. So we have come to a situation where we feel handicapped without a technology. Starting from the first, starting from the first thing what you do in the day, you wake up, probably you go and switch on your switch to get your morning routine up and running, and then probably you switch off your AC. If you see, AI has been there, for good 60, 70 years, but the thing is we have not seen it probably, and we have not felt that this is what AI looks like. So AI in the beginning, by 1956, Professor Carter has formed this very term called as AI in 56. So it's been there for quite a few decades now. And there are two main things when you talk about AI. First one is, of course, the reactive machines. So when I mean the reactive machines, it's simple, something very simple like your microwave oven or your washing machine. We call it automatic washing machines. We don't even realize that it's nothing but at the end of the day, it's an AI. Because these are reactive machines which are basically tuned to do a set of activities, which is very monotonous, and it does not just have the historical data. So what I mean to say is AI has been there, but how did AI got enhanced is basically the addition of the aspect of remembering things, right? Before, in those days, when those machines existed, it did not really remember anything. It just does what it is being told. So now in the late 90s, one of the major, turnaround for AI, I would say, when, IBM itself had this machine called as Deep Blue. I don't know how many of you know that. So when IBM came up with this supercomputer called Deep Blue, that machine was able to win over a grandmaster of chess. So that was the first time world was shocked that probably AI could take on humans and eventually beat one of the best in the world. So that was the first time that people started taking AI very seriously. They, rather than seeing it as a machine, they started becoming a little skeptical. What if the machines start replacing us? And then everyone knows what happened in the Hollywood. They love to work on fantasies. There were so much movies about AI. One of my favorite being iRobot. There are so much movies, literally zillions of movies out there to do on that. So now we are at a juncture where it's no more fantasy. We are just living and we are part of AI. So that is something to begin with how AI began. So once IBM's Deep Blue was there, and just with the blink of an eye, with few years rolling by, we have so much of products which are being utilized by AI. So for those of AI, AI itself, I would not call it just a field of just a part of computer science. Even many people say that is just a specialization in computer science. Well, it will not be a good justice for me to put it in such a small bracket for AI, because AI is the AI is very, very industry agnostic. So what I'm trying to say is, you cannot put AI in a box, and we are talking about out of the box thinking, and AI is exactly that, because AI is constantly because AI works on two basic things. Like, so one is the machine learning, which is completely based on the historic set of data, and the second part is something called as deep learning. So these are the basic two layers on which AI works. In dummy language, I can call it as machine learning being the epidermal or the external layer, and then you got like the deep learning, which is rather a subset of the machine learning. Now, what is machine learning? It is nothing but, let's say, Modi ji, right? He's now everywhere on the paper, right? Like, it is very simple that we take human senses for granted. Do you understand that, for example, Raghav is there, Manoj, me, I'm here, and probably Ritik is not having his video, but he must be having a face and sitting there. So this is the first time I see Raghav, and probably a week later I will not be able to recognize him. I will try to do that, but it will be tough. But imagine every day Raghav has just joined SRM, and I'm seeing him for 4 or 5 days. Then I start developing the memory, right? And my neurons fire up. I see like, okay, this young chap is Raghav. Like immediately that bumps in my mind. How does it happen? Because over a period of time, my memory builds up. So if you see a young kid, the first in the third or the fourth month, it topples over, and then by fifth or sixth month starts crawling and everything. If you closely observe, there is a study which shows a kid was photographed continuously for 60, 70 days. And it is exactly like how you go to a workout or a gym. Like the first day, you are probably pushing in like, 10 lbs, and down the line, you are hitting like in 3-4 months, you're hitting like 40 or 50. So if you photograph yourself or a baby, you can see that every day there is some development, right? And we often, we humans, take that for granted. It's basically like brushing your teeth or having your food. Sometimes you don't even realize that it is your muscle memory that is built over time, that you hardly even notice it. Now that is exactly how AI works, right? So machine learning is basically set of activities that are fed into this beautiful tool, where the external layer has all the set of data, not just the possible options, but also the impossible options. We just throw in all this data inside this analysis tool. Then the data analysis part happens. Once there is a historic data, only then you can able to predict what can happen in the future. So not just historic data, you also, yeah, someone had a question?
No, I think that was just a mistake. Please continue.
No problem. So I will try not to make it a monologue, but I thought setting the pitch right and just understand, because a lot of the people here are young students, right? So if I straight away jump in and talk about Python or R or supercomputer or quantum computing, they would say this guy is just another boring lecture here. So I don't want to do that. So that's why I thought, let me make it as interesting as possible, because AI is not just for someone who's just going to study AI, right? You like it or not, AI is here to stay. And if you don't know AI, it's like how your nana nanis, they don't know WhatsApp, how to send a message. They come to you and you feel like they are so tech dumb. And trust me, guys, students today, and Raghav, you and I, if you're not going to understand what is machine learning or deep learning, we'll end up like today's nana who does not know how to send WhatsApp or email. So that is why it's not just an education. AI is no more a certification or an education or a degree to pursue, but it is rather than an awareness, right? Like today, if you don't know how to write a check, at schools you're taught how to write a check. At schools you're taught how to some convents how to wear a tie, and these things have become basic etiquette that without that you cannot survive, right? So that is why I thought it is basic necessity to understand how machine learning works. So now I spoke enough about machine learning. Now what is deep learning, right? So machine learning is just a set of historical data that is being plotted, through which the tool is able to recognize between a likelihood of recurrence. So I said 4 or 5 times I start seeing Raghav. Probably down the line, even after a year, I can remember, okay, this is Mr. Raghav. So how does it happen? Because I developed that certain time where I can see and recognize the similar facial structure. That's how I started with Modi ji. So today, you don't even need to see a fraction of a second to understand. You just imagine you're going at 100 kmph in your highways, and then you see on the corner there's a banner with someone with a white hair and a big beard. You don't even need to see that picture. That's going to be Modi. So how did your brain develop that kind of a fast grasping power? Because you see a familiarity over and over again. You see the distance between two eyes. You see the complexion of the skin. You see the color of the hair. You see the facial features. There are 100 other things. In fact, million other things that you probably think it over a second, because we have the neurons. We have a beautiful CNS, the central nervous system, which is firing all those reactions to understand. Okay, now we come to a conclusion that it is Modi ji. And there are many poses. For example, Shah Rukh Khan or any celebrities you see, there are so many mimicry artists or people who are doing an act, exactly looking like them, but we still know, okay, this is not exactly that person. We sometimes we don't even know our friends from a distance, but we know these celebrities because we subconsciously develop that memory again and again. So that's exactly how your machine learning works. So now when I talk about deep learning, now that's exactly deep learning. It's a lot about the networking model, right? It is the core of the neural network. So in machine learning, it is basically computation of historical data. It combines with the present ambience of the situation and sort of either it gives what is going to happen in the immediate future, or it can come up with beautiful prediction models that can be useful for various decision making, or it can be saving a patient who needs to have a surgery, undergo surgery very soon. So that's why I began my topic saying that AI is very, very agnostic. It is industry agnostic in nature. So combining machine learning as an exterior tool with the deep learning, understanding the neural networks, you are able to sort of make a fusion to actually understand what is AI, right? So from now on, I have just told you, you can call it AI for dummy or the basics of AI. Now, Raghav, you can ask me, any questions upon AI, where it is used, or how we at SRM are doing things like that. So can
absolutely, sir. In fact, I think you've shed the light so beautifully that you've kind of all these students in class 11 and 12 can easily understand in terms of what AI is. I think when I was a kid, I went on to study computer science and everything. So I do understand most of the terms you're saying, and that's very interesting. One of the things you said about AI is, it's thinking out of the box. I think AI today, and we tell all our students this, that it's helping us how to, just remove the box altogether, because the possibilities with AI are endless. And you have absolutely said that. I think most perception that we have of AI is, what we see in films. On a Netflix or an Amazon or whatever Western culture is showing us, that's what we perceive it to be, right? And most of the students might find it very interesting. How do you think I can pursue, or let's say any student today who's watching us, how can we pursue a specialization? As you said, it's more than just a specialization. We're not really doing it justice. How can I pursue this and get, advanced into this at SRM? How these opportunities present there?
So the first and foremost thing is how things work at SRM, or some of the good institutions have also come up with such programs. So what we do is the difference between your traditional computer science and your specialization program is basically, one is we are industry accredited. When I mean industry accredited, now that's a very overused, oversold term. But what I mean here is we don't just have a MOU signed up, right? What we have is something very meaningful. We have something called a CEP, which is called Career Education Program Initiative by IBM. So what we do is 70% of the curriculum is taught by an SRM faculty, like professors of SRM. Now the 30% of the curriculum is not actually taught by SRM faculty, they're actually taught by the industry experts, right? So we have this nice vertical office in Gurgaon, the IBM office in Gurgaon. So every weekly, twice, there are folks from IBM Gurgaon who come all the way here who are training the students on not just AI, but the entire industry on how AI is shaping. It's not just about technology, because what professors can probably teach is they can tell you how to code, how to use AI, the use cases, the application. But if you really want to know, like for example, the live projects, like which companies are using AI, where is AI being used, and through AI, how companies are able to generate profit or able to solve a problem. So these are the insights that are being directly shared from an industry. Now imagine someone who is giving you a book on how to do swimming. No matter you read the book 100 times, you'll never learn it, right? Unless you actually have an instructor who immerse you and put you there in that pool, where eventually you will end up drinking some water or what. So at the end of the day, you will eventually learn how to swim. So that is what is need, which is actually lacking in the education industry. Because I studied a bit of time abroad. What I saw is my professor who was teaching me was also having a part-time job in Sony. And most of the professors, I'm from University of Bradford. What I noticed is most of the visiting professors had actually a full-time job. And the companies also motivate these. He was the chief marketing officer for Entered Poland. So he was teaching me about marketing. So imagine an industry person who is a chief marketing officer who is currently having a job and is teaching us. So that is what is needed. So it becomes really easy to understand live examples about how stuff happens in the industry, because ultimately, no matter you spend 3 or 5 years of your time in the university, you are going to end up in the industry. That is where you're going to spend most of your life, right? So see, imagine we all have 24 hours of time, right? We spend 8 hours. Usually some people spend 5 to 6 hours if you're very young, but most of your good healthy sleep cycle talks about 8 hours of sleeping, right? And no one is actually able to spend 8 hours at home. It's usually because traveling, another thing, if you take that away, you are having just about 6 active hours at home. So if you see, the most of the time your brain and your active body, your being, your self-conscious is at work. So you just cannot evade the possibilities that over the entire lifetime you're going to be working at somewhere or the other. So that is why I'm saying it is very important to understand these technologies, how we can leverage and help you. So that is why someone from the industry need to train you for 3 or 4 years of time, because so that how you can better yourself in the industry. So that is how we ensure that the students are not just getting sort of the syllabus covered, because we are not an institution to get your syllabus covered and finish your degree. What we want to do is to create a career, because at the end of 4 years time, I asked some of my students, do you want to become a graduate or an engineer? They just scratch their head and ask me, sir, unless I'm a graduate, I cannot be an engineer. I said, no, you're wrong. Because you see, for example, biggest co-founders, there's a joke, they say you need to be dropout in order to become a co-founder. But they were not dropout from ABC Engineering College, right? They were dropout from Harvard and Oxford. And it's a joke, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is you don't need a graduate, you don't need to be graduates to actually become an engineer, right? But can you be a graduate and say, I am an engineer true by heart, without actually engineering your thoughts, without actually able to solve real life problems? Because the core area of engineer is to solve a problem, right? So now I ask my students, now I rephrase my question, I ask them again, do you want to become an engineer or graduate? Because the Indian education is working on how to create an employee. Because many institutions are teaching people how to become an employee, but no one talks about employability. There's difference between creating an employee and creating employability, right? That's exactly the difference between creating a graduate and creating an engineer. I don't want to be a recruitment agency, right? Some people come to me and ask me, sir, what is the highest package? What is the placement record? What is the average package? I said, come on, don't put a price tag on your head and sell yourself. Probably you can be an employer, right? Probably you can think out of the box. Probably you can pick up your higher studies, become a scientist. So that is the main reason for brain drain that is happening in the country, because many times we fail to understand that we are very employee centric. We are very job focused. The curriculum is very job focused, is very placement oriented, but it should be rather knowledge oriented, problem solving oriented. So at SRM, we are not just teaching people on how to become a graduate, because we actually want them to become true engineers, true problem solvers, true leaders. So that is how we distinguish and create a niche for ourselves from others by bringing in this industry expertise into the picture.
Absolutely. I think that kind of answers it very well, sir. And there are a lot of questions been coming in. So I'll just ask them to hold the thoughts because, of course, we're going to be covering most of those. I think one of the questions that is coming in is, I'm in class 11 or I'm in class 12, right? Of course, I have to get to a college. I have to get into the corporate world eventually. When do I start preparing for it? When is a good time, would you say? As you said, you don't have to be a graduate. You're always an engineer still. When would you say, when do I start preparing for this? Let's say I love coding. And when do I start?
See, if you ask me, if you see Bill Gates, he has made a lot of open source, coders for kids. There are so many forums and consortium. So I wouldn't really put an age tag on that. However, with a pinch of caution, what I would say is that, like for example, Albert Einstein himself, he was so bad at math, but fortunately he was so good at physics. He's one of the most cited scientists ever man has seen, right? But at the end of the day, he was so bad in maths. So what I want to say to the students is that, yes, I see that someone has written, I love coding, I want to learn about AI. Yes, there is no specific age to start. Literally, you can start when you're even a 5-year-old. From the time you start understanding what is AI, there is no real limitation. But at the same time, I see some people are saying, I don't want to name, there are some companies who say, you can start, there was a name called Wolf Sharma or something like that, like a kid can become Mark Zuckerberg after a fast track course of 1 month. Now that is really insane, right? So if you really want to do good in life, what you have to do is you have to understand some basic criteria. Because for example, even if you want to do an engineering course, not just in SRM, anywhere in India, you need to have the basically 3 things. One is the PCM, which is rather avoided sometimes. But you need to have the basic eligibility criteria, right? So that's why people who are in class 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th, yes, definitely learn about AI and everything. Instead of spending time on Instagram and Facebook, well, do that as well. That is very important, because Instagram, Facebook, also there are very good influences. So play your games, post your photos, but also follow some really nice people. That's one way to learn. Because at the end of the day, you cannot really go and start reading a 500-page book on AI. That never really works, and you will definitely get bored. The first thing is attending webinars like what we are having now. There are so many people who are, there are so many open source videos available. There are so much of platforms like Instagram and Facebook where you can picking up. But do not compromise on your core learning, meaning that imagine you want to become an AI expert. Well, you can pick up a course after you finish your foundation. So that's why foundation is very important. So that's why I would not ask you to rush, go and buy an AI book today and read the 500 pages and not at all touch your books for your physics, chemistry, and math. Because without that, unfortunately, you cannot get into any of the good institutions in India. So right now, you are still young. Do it as a hobby, because don't do it like you want to earn money. Right? Earning money, there are literally million ways to do that. But right now, if you're really passionate, do that in your free time. You should not compromise on your basic studies. So first is your studies, whichever you're doing, be it geography, history, or whatever you're studying. Right? If you're in class 6, you learn like plethora of subjects. You learn like 10 subjects. If you're probably 11th and 12th, okay, fine. You at least have limited specialized, you have your streams to choose. So start focusing on those things. Take AI as a hobby. Don't even see it as a course or a program or education tool. Be aware. Follow these influences. Understand the basic. Like, for example, this webinar I'm talking about AI for Dummy. I told you about machine learning, deep learning. You must be curious. On Sundays, on Saturdays, go and see a couple of videos, and that's it. You don't need to pick up a course and do it all the while. If you do it, it's fine. But ensure that you're not compromising on your studies. If you're able to balance between studies and also do a course on AI, well, I'm not stopping. So I think that's how I'll put it, because I don't want to give you a false impression. Go today, AI is everything, do AI. No. Focus on your fundamentals. If you see that you are able to balance between your fundamentals and AI, enjoy what you're doing and take AI as a hobby or your extracurricular activity. And that's the way to go about it.
Great. I think that has kind of answered a lot of questions in the chat as well, because a lot of them were curious in terms of what do I need to do? What is the eligibility? even at SRM for that matter, what are the subjects required? I think something that's very interesting, somebody asked in the chat, and I think this is going to be a twofold question for you, sir. I know recently the NEP came in and a lot of emphasis was made on, students should start learning how to code very early in their educational journey, right? A lot of emphasis was put into it. How degrees can be more flexible was put into it. First, how is this being catered to? Like, how is this being catered to? How is SRM looking at this moving forward? And because this is a government mandated thing, how is the future of AI looking in India, let's say? I know it's looking really bright for the Western cultures, Western countries. How is it looking like for India?
Yeah, I think that's a very right question that you've asked. Luckily, SRM, with a legacy of 50 years in education and also known for engineering, see, this, even though there are fancy terms of that are quoted in national education policy, there is a someone talks about CBCS that talks about choice-based credit system. There are UGC is also talking about LOCF, which is learning outcome-based curriculum framework, right? But good institution, what we have done in the past, thanks to our international collaborations, we work with a number of universities, like even including University of Oxford, University of Birmingham, and many other people are there in our kitty. So what we have done is we have already introduced the good practices that have been taken from the westernized education models. So if you see, major minors is a very well-known model in the western part of the world. Whereas in India, this is some people, if you ask a student, what's your majors and what's your minors, they will say, well, I'm 17, I'm a minor, I will become a major very soon, because the idea is not really understood. So basically, I will just clear all the doubts today and try to do that. And NEP is exactly nailing that point, which I really like. This high time, and it has come exactly at the time where this pandemic also come in. This has really pushed us into digitalization. I really welcome this move, because NEP is not just talking about major minor concept. What it has done is using this choice-based credit system, LOCF, what it has done is it has not restricted anyone into a certain box. We are talking about kicking the box out. It's not about out of the box. It's about kicking the box, not having the box in the first place. Why to have a box and then jump out of it, right? Go out of it. Why have box in the first? That's what everyone is talking about. So NEP is exactly addressing that. So you can join a program. You can walk away with a 1-year certification if you don't like it. Or if you do a 2-year, 3-year, you can walk away with a diploma. And in the 4 years, you can make an engineering degree. Like how for a bank, you have a passbook where every time, every entry and exit is being taken care. Now, national education policy has come up with something called as ABC, right? Not the alphabet ABC, it's called Academic Bank of Credits. So like your bank passbook can start accumulating credits. You can start jotting down that ABC, you can have those credits, and you can sort of become jack of all trades. Everyone is talking about gigs economy, right? So if you see a typical model, like how, for example, I will take IBM as an example. So IBM has offices in more than 140 countries. There's an office in Japan, there's an office in India, there's an office in the US. So how does a global project happening? Someone in Japan picks up the work in the morning, and by the time it's afternoon, some chap gets up early morning in India and takes the project over, and that's how the entire project life cycle is happening. So, and gigs economy is exactly talking about that, because morning you're probably, you're a yoga instructor. By afternoon, you are a coder. By evening, you are driving an Uber. And late evening, you are in a nice pub, playing some music or something like that. So this is exactly the world demands. The world does not need masters of anything. World needs jack of all trades, right? We want people with multiple skill sets. So Raghav, even if you have a company, imagine you want an accountant, you want a marketer, you want someone to do sales. Imagine I have all three. You will obviously choose me over anyone else. So that is exactly what is needed for the country. And I really welcome what national education policy is able to do. And we have already implemented that at SRM. For example, if you see law, in law, we have introduced blockchain, right? Because we believe in future, any documentation, one of the safest method of signing a documentation can be done through a blockchain. And any tenders, legal tenders. And now government is also getting up into blockchain in a huge scale. Initially, there was a lot of hesitancy when cryptocurrency was happening. Many people think, by the way, students, blockchain and cryptocurrency are not same at all, right? Blockchain is a technology, and just 0.1 application, one of the application is cryptocurrency. We don't even realize there are 99 or 1,000 other things. So blockchain is also coming up, and blockchain is again, AI and blockchain can be fused, and we have blockchain, AI, and IoT, all these part of the curriculum. So if you're a law student, you are encouraged to study about AI. If you're a commerce student, you are encouraged to study about hospitality. So that is the beauty of university, which is rather lacking in other institutions. Yeah.
Perfect. Also, I know just one last thing here as well for in terms of, when we graduate from SRM, as you said, of course, the goal is to be an engineer and whatnot. But by the time the 4-year degree is over, I know it will be like 4 or 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line. Is AI still looking very promising, or how's that?
No, it's not going to be promising for 4 years. It's rather going to be promising for more than 4 years. That's what I'm trying to say. Because see, and you asked one question which I probably missed out. You asked, how is it in India? So that's another question I probably missed out.
As well.
That is somehow related with this question as well.
Yeah.
So yes, you are right. India is still not mature enough. It is right now in a very early stage when you talk about AI. The Indian Employability Report talks that only 3% of Indians are actually working in the AI domain when you talk about the IT sector, IT and ITES sector. The NASSCOM reports also talks that there is a heavy demand for data scientists and AI experts in this area. And this demand is ever increasing. There is a racing trend for this demand. And it is already predicted that, even in this new report, what Kejriwal ji has come up with, Delhi 2045, it talks a lot on AI if you see the actual report. If you talk about the global employability ratio, even there they're talking about data scientists in AI. So AI is here to stay for at least next 50 to 60 years. Probably they will call it new, like how I said before, it was simply, machines, which we didn't even know it was AI. Now it has evolved. It has evolved and given a term called AI. Now AI will evolve, but it is always going to stay there. So that is why you need to constantly upgrade yourself. So it is not about a matter of 4 years. If you study AI, I think by end of not only your lifetime, probably your next generation's lifetime, AI is going to stay there.
Great. I think that has kind of answered for most of the students in the chat box as well. Very skeptical in terms of what is the future like? Will I get a job? What's the industry going to look like? In terms of industries, if I have a degree or a specialization in AI, am I restricting myself to the tech world only, or can I actually work in other industries?
Not at all. For example, I worked in Daimler for a brief time, Benz for a brief time. So, for example, if you see automobile, nowadays, I'm not talking just about Tesla. Mahindra is working on AI-driven cars. Apple is working on self-driven cars. Google is also working on self-driven cars. So all these are automobile industry, right? Someone is asking about ECE. So you see, and IoT is nothing but it's Internet of Things, and at the end of the day, it's nothing but a sensor that sends signals, and based on that, a tool is taking a decision of what needs to be done. So in automobile industry, it is there. Now let me talk about military. Now so many Jawans, young chaps, young Turks have died in that Siachen glacier, for example. There are very tough conditions in the border, not only Indian border. If you see most of the countries, the natural borders, they have either rivers or mountains or very, the borders are naturally formed. We see India, the natural border, you have a lot of mountains, right? And most of the countries are built in such a way. So imagine if you have one of the students came up with a project where a drone, he took a normal drone, he attached a couple of sensors, right? One was a thermal sensor and one was AI-based sensor, which could identify between a plant, animal, and a human being. Now he proposed this project to DRDO. He said, see, this can be used as a surveillance tool, and so that soldiers need not go every time and be there in that cold weather and understand. And even if there was some terrorist activity, immediately it can alert the checkpost, and then people can be deployed. So imagine amount of money and resource saved in military, right? Now when you talk about banking and financial sectors, all the prediction model today is based on AI. Like the Ministry of Finance is coming up with prediction models. Like because of COVID, there is a surge, there is a prediction that will come up. All the big four tech giants like Ernst & Young or So many companies are there. So all the KPMG and the likes, they are using AI tools for their data modeling, and they're exactly predicting how finance will go. So finance, military, healthcare. I told you already, for example, diabetes, there is a device coming up nowadays. I don't know, it's very famous abroad. Nowadays, no one needs to actually, take insulin. Now, I see some old people taking this insulin shots into them, or they need to have heavy tablets which can spoil, affect your liver and other organs. So now they're coming up with a patch. What the patch does, it is itself an IoT device. It is connected to your phone. What it does, it's a beautiful device. Imagine it constantly monitors your glucose level. And the moment, imagine you're having something calorific, like a sweet or something. So the moment your glucose level rises up, instantly there is a micro dosing of insulin in your blood, right? So what happens? It is not waiting for your glucose to affect you. Instantly, it is giving micro doses. So constantly, your sugar is maintained for a long time. So you understand? So it is used in healthcare for diabetes. Nothing but an IoT device at the end of the day, right? So it is again built on AI. Exactly analyzes your patterns and then takes a decision. No, it is not asking you. At least you need to remember, okay, before food, I need to use my insulin. Sometimes you forget it. So imagine how much life it is saving. Diabetes is no more a disease. It has become a lifestyle disorder, and AI is solving that issue. So Raghav, in essence, what I want to say is I already told you that it is completely industry agnostic. So AI really does not restrict you. Rather, it opens up horizons for you to explore. So it is not a computer science subject to learn. You can be a microbiologist, but still you need to learn AI. So if you're an AI expert, you can basically literally work in any segment, be it a banking, financial, medical, military, paramedical, core engineering to hai. But apart from that, anything can be literally taken apart.
Done. I think that kind of answers it. Of course, I can absolutely vouch for it that yes, it is very industry transparent. No matter where you're working, you will find some sort of implementation. I just saw a question, a student was asking about space and astronomy. And to be really frank about it, maybe ISRO or SpaceX or NASA, those space shuttles going up in space, it's not somebody actually driving those things. They have been automated all from the beginning. So I think that's a very good example right there. One last question before I take up some question from the audience is, is there a specific skill set, specific subjects that I should have? Let's say if I am looking to pursue this degree, even at SRM for that matter, are you looking at a specific set of subjects, or is it that, okay, I can skip a few and then maybe I can still get an admission there?
See, the first and foremost thing is for not only for AI, yes, I can add for AI as well. The most important subject for anyone is math. So take your mathematics very seriously. You like it or not, you have to have math, because without mathematics, you cannot study AI. You can understand the concept, like what the webinar I was talking about, deep learning machine. But once you start dive deeping into any kind of programming language for that instance, you need to understand the logic. You need to understand the algorithm. You need to visualize the data sets. So data scientist, what is data? Data is ultimately you are churning out numbers and predictions, models over and over and over and over again. So without having a strong, so it's not just mathematics alone, because mathematics is a fundamental. So you are talking about entry criteria, right? So entry criteria, yes, math is very important. But down the line, there are other skill sets that are very important. One is definitely logics, right? When I mean logic, you should have the knack to visualize what could happen. If this condition is set, this can happen. So again, computer science talks a lot about logics. In math, you have set theory, which we have been studying from primary schools. So once you know in depth about how an algorithm works, so math is very important. And for any engineer, you need to have physics, chemistry, and math as mandatory. Even though there are a lot of debates happening that one need not have these subjects, you can talk any subjects, you can do a bridge course. But we at SRM, we are very particular about these three subjects, because we believe without these three subjects, it will be really impossible for the student to catch up, because we are not here to train Raghav as an individual, right? We have a class of 60. We ensure that everyone, there are different learners, there are slow learners, fast learners, but at least they all start in the same segment of entry criteria, which is having math as a background. Now, without that, it is really going to be difficult. There are a lot of debates. Now, AICTE has come up with a recent proposal of admitting students without math, which is having a lot of backlash. Yes, in Western models, it does apply, but in a country like India, where there's enough chaos in terms of so many graduates, but relatively less job opportunity, which is actually a myth, because there is actually a demand in the market. It is actually a lack of skill sets. So when you talk about skill sets, please take your fundamentals very seriously, especially mathematics.
Perfect. I think those are all, I think all the questions seem to be answered really well here. And I think we've covered it very nicely in terms of what AI is, how to kind of build an interest there. One, I'll just take up a few questions from the audience directly now that you can address. One was, pursuing these online courses, are these credible in the first place? Should I be pursuing this in grade 9, 10, 11? Or should I actually wait, go to college and then maybe pursue these on the side? How would you address this?
Yeah, that's what I already told you. See, if you're going to do a course when you are in your 9th, 10th, or even if you're 5th grader or 6th grader, the concept is, as long as you're able to do justice to your fundamental school subjects, be it a homeschooling, open schooling, CBSE board, this board, that, whatever education you are getting it, ensure that the fundamentals are very strong. Because I'm now talking about online, there are also online degrees coming up, online courses coming up. Well, it is good for knowledge, right? It is just like you are learning like how to paint, or you're learning how to drive, but driving is a life skill. So, or swimming. So these are the life skills that are going to come a long way. But imagine if you want to be doing as a professional, right? Then your online certification alone will not help you, because fortunately or unfortunately, I'll put it that way, that most of, for example, even if you want to go and get into government sectors or most of the companies today, there are some regulatory bodies which is taking care of professionals. For example, for all BTech courses, you have a regulatory body called AICTE, the Association of, it, a lot of you know about AICTE. So without this technical education regulatory body telling us, the Council of Technical Education telling us that you have to have these parameters, you have to have these mandatory subjects. For example, in engineering, yoga is a mandatory subject. Environmental science is mandatory. Now you can ask, why should engineer learn about yoga? Well, that's how it works. That's how we roll. So in your online degree, it's good for knowledge. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of getting into a job or creating a career, I will strongly vouch that you get into a university, do a face-to-face class. Of course, now there is pandemic, but even now government has allowed that for a few of the lab experiments, you can call students. We are having all the tools. For example, we have a Cisco WebEx where we conduct the online lectures and classes. But honestly speaking, our students are feeling the pinch. They feel that nothing replaces a physical classroom scenario. The joy of sitting in a classroom and seeing a professor and then straight away getting your queries answered is always going to be better than a typical online course. So definitely take up a university conventional degree, yes, to support your career, to grow up in your career. And if you, for example, you can do this, you have to keep on doing this certification program even after you join a work. So for example, even if you get into any of the MNCs like TCS or CTS or Tata, anywhere, what you need to do is, even they are going to trust me folks here, if you think after 4 years you're going to get in a job and your life is set, I'm sorry, there is a wake-up call for you all. There is going to be constant training on technologies almost every 6 months. You're going to have examinations, you're going to have certifications, only then you can grow up in your ladder. So eventually you will be forced to take up all the certification and courses and programs. So set your fundamentals right, walk away with a valid degree. And when you choose an institution, be very particular if they have all the recognitions. Many institutions are being shut without proper recognitions or approval. So once you go to university, be it SRM or anywhere, ensure that if this university is credible enough, do they have the regulatory body approvals? Go to the website. Every university there is a mandatory rule Please, folks, pay attention to this one. Every university should have a column in their website which is called mandatory disclosure. Go to any university's website in India. There is something called as mandatory disclosure. It could be below know us or about us. If you see there, they have to upload all the reports of be it UGC or AICT. If, for example, I have law program, there is a BCI approval required. So all these things, check the validity and everything, and then choose an institution, right? And once, if you know the brand is good, it's been for so many years, then of course they will have all these things. But always be, because you cannot blame the university for its choice, because you are a fool if you do not check the proper website. We are spending so much time on social media. If we can't spend 2 minutes on a website where we are going to spend not just 4 years of your life, you are going to create a foundation for your entire life, then it's your mistake. So ensure that these regulatory bodies and the approvals are given appropriately in all the institutions' website. Without that, never take a call.
Perfect. I think those are all the questions that were primarily there. We have covered most of them, and I think we're good on time as well, sir. Any last tips, any last words of wisdom that you want to give to all our students who are here?
Yeah. So what I would tell the students is that if not for AI, it's not about today, even though the topic was for AI, what I want to conclude is that for the people who are confused, for example, I said in law we have AI, right? And then I said in commerce we are talking about how to be a manager. For engineers, we have a subject called as quality management, which talks a lot about how to manage a company. You can ask why should an engineer learn a subject from management, MBA, right? So what I'm trying to say is today's world is demanding people to be jack of all. So that is why choose a university where you have a lot of options to explore, right? For imagine, of course, the national education policy says that you can walk out from the institution, join a different institution. But that is slightly tricky for India because, see, unlike, for example, in UK, if you go from London to Birmingham or Birmingham to, let's say, Lancaster or anywhere, you have, first of all, the language is same, the culture is same, there's not much different. But in India, it's quite complex. You know, we are a nation where we talk on unity in diversity, right? It's good that we are all united. But in India, the problem is sometimes what happens, the weather, the culture, the food. For example, someone asked, where is SRM? So SRM, we have got 22 institutions across India. So one is in Chennai, one is in Andhra Pradesh, one is in Sikkim, one is in UP, and I represent the Sonipat, Delhi NCR campus in Haryana. So what I'm trying to say is many times I felt some of the students who go to Chennai from North, by end of first year, they are writing emails to my counterpart, my other colleague there in Chennai, saying that I'm not able to get accustomed to this humid weather. I don't like the food. I don't like this and that. So even though national education policy gives a lot of, mobility, when I mean to say mobility, you can come and go. I would slightly take a different stance from here. What I would say, they should focus on how to give a lot of awareness, a lot of, heterogeneous aspects in a university, rather than motivating students to go here and there. Because what happens, that is why one should choose a good university where you have multiple courses. Because imagine, for example, I will tell you one example before I just take maximum 5 more minutes. So we have an incubation center here. Now I'll tell you what happens in the incubation center. Many institutions have just a nice room where they put a sticker called as incubation center and they don't do anything. We at SRM take it very seriously. I'll tell you what happens in incubation center. Imagine you are a mechanical engineer or an EC guy who came up with this drone, for example. I was talking about a student who made a drone. Now what happens, the drone is ultimately a machinery, right? Like it has like sensors, someone needs to do the casing, the blades, the motors and everything. So EC people, there is a mechanical people, all are there. Now there is someone, a coder from CSC or an AI expert or someone from IoT courses are going there and giving all the inputs to do the software part, the connectivity part, the network part, and then now the product is ready. Now what happens, once you want to go for a copyright or a patenting of the product, now the legal team will help you how to draft the legalities for that, how to do proper copyrights for that. You know, these things, all the legal issues. Now you also have management course in SRM. So now an MBA guy or a BBA folk will come and tell you, guys, so this is the product. Now they will do the market and they will do the market study. They will tell you the go-to-market strategies. They will tell you how to sell this product. What is the likelihood of marketing this product? How to brand this product? How to take it to the venture capital? How to pitch a product? What is the sales pitch? Now, commerce folk will come and tell you how to ensure that you have a break-even period of 3 years. How do you get drive the ROI? How should the financial statement should be? How do you register a company? How do you ensure that the profit and loss should be handled? How do you get your debits and credits accounted? So that is the beauty of a full-fledged university, which is not given in a small college or an institution. That is why choose a place where you can play a lot. Like, for example, Dhoni, he was a ticket collector, then he went to football, then he was shining in cricket. Now he had a plethora of options, he had some life to do. But imagine, consider university as a playground which has a lot of options. Like, even if you go to a gym for a workout, you don't keep the same machines again, right? You want to work out as a whole. So likewise, choose a place where there's a multiple options, where you can not just study about AI or computer science alone, but once you understand, talk about how does managers do their stuff, what does commerce people study. Once you have the overall awareness, I'm sure that is where is going to give you an edge. So once you walk into a company, imagine even if you not even about placement or getting a degree. Imagine after 5 years, 10 years, you're working in a company, and there is suddenly a job requirement coming up. There are 10 engineers who are your colleagues, and someone asks you, well, I have to roll out this product. There is a client coming in. Our account manager is on leave today. So can somehow raise to the occasion and talk to the client and what this product is about. So if you don't know how to pitch your idea, if you don't know how to market it, if you don't know how to understand the client requirement document, or to study it, or to solve it, you would never grow up in life. Now, when opportunity knocks, you need to go to that opportunity and receive that. Receive all those blessings, start counting them. So that's why choosing an institution, ensure that they have a plethora of options, and choose an institution where there's all the approvals and regulatory bodies. Choose an institution which has good international collaboration, because see, now you are probably in schools where your Padosi will be from maximum 20 to 30 kilometer radius, unless you are in a convent, that's different. But if you are from Delhi, for example, most of the people are from Delhi itself, and you will be people seeing from north or south or west Delhi. But if you come to SRM, for example, you have students from 24 different states and union territories. You have international students. You have students from Nigeria, you have students from US, you have students from Taiwan. So that's the beauty, right? So you are also, once you go into job, it's even going to be difficult. I told you about gigs economy. I told you about how IBM works. You have to work with Japanese in the morning, and in the night you have to work with someone in Brazil. So when you talk about international, that's why you need to understand how the international aspect is also important. So internationalization is very important. Industry academia gap. Many people, they just give the degrees. I already told you, we don't want to give degrees. We want to give a career. And the career can be given only when you have the right mentors from the industry. We also have, if you check our website, we also have the industry academia board, the advisory board, who constantly advises on how to update the curriculum. So I told you about law, right? So last 1 more minute I'll take. So we recently conducted the board of studies. So there were folks from NLUs. NLUs are the IITs for lawyers, right? So there were a couple of folks from NLUs who came in and who saw a syllabus, who said, blockchain and law. This is something that's not thought about. That we had an IBM expert talking about the applications of blockchain in law. They were just blown away. They said, they are now thinking of bringing this in NLUs. So that is what SRM has set as benchmark as, because we don't want to, just follow what is being done. We want to be trendsetters also. So that is what I would finally tell to my students. So once you choose a university, ensure that you have all these parameters. And with that, I wish you all the best. So don't take too much of stress. A is not a big deal, but at the same time, without any hard work, smart work is appreciated, but smart work will help you only if you have at least a little bit of hard work, right? So without hard work, don't purely trust on smart work, because at the end of the day, AI alone will not help you. You need some HI, human intelligence also, not just the artificial intelligence. So without the HI, you cannot have AI. So with that, I wish you all a great night ahead, and also long weekend is coming. There is Moharram for Pharaoh Islam students, and there is also Raksha Bandhan coming in. So wish you all Moharram and Raksha Bandhan wishes. It's a time to be with the family, and stay safe and stay happy.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think this has been really amazing 1 hour. I think very productively used for everybody who was here. Some real gems we're walking away with. And thank you so much for your time. I know you've taken time out of your busy schedule, and we'll be more than happy to kind of, answer any questions. I know there's so many of you. Just write to us at hello@mindler.com, and we'll be happy to help you with anything. So yeah, but thank you so much everybody for joining in. And I hope this has kind of, I would say, sparked an interest in AI, and you would all want to know more about it. Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you everybody for joining in. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care, stay safe, and have lovely festivals that are coming up. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone.